Hello, kind people of YouTube, and welcome back to another video. I'm sorry if it seemed like I was dropping the channel once again. I did not. It's just, like I told you in the last couple of videos, I will not be aiming for daily videos anymore. I will make videos when I have the time and when news topics catch my interest. So today there's essentially two topics I want to talk about, but I have three articles open here. And the first one, some statements by Ripple's CEO, by Brett Garlinghouse, which might read as shocking, but that I think should be pretty uncontroversial. So let's read them together and then we can talk about it properly. As many as 99% of all cryptocurrencies will likely go to zero, according to a new prediction by Ripple CEO Brett Garlinghouse. Is this even a new prediction? I feel like he said that in the past before, but I also said similar things. There are too many crypto projects, says Garlinghouse. In an interview with Bloomhouse released November 5th, Garlinghouse claimed that there are too many cryptocurrencies so far, forecasting that only 1% of all crypto is here to stay. That small number of crypto projects will be game-changing and grow significantly in the decades since they will be focusing on solving real problems for real customers, he declared. And this, just stopping here, this seems like a really big statement to make, almost an apocalyptic statement. 99% will disappear and the 1% will take over. But think of any other business, any other type of business that was developing, any other sector that was developing. There's usually hundreds, thousands of companies around in the beginning, usually a lot of small companies. And within a couple years, within a decade or two, a few large companies are crystallized as the market leaders. And there's very little reason to believe that it will happen differently in crypto. But let's continue with the article for a moment. According to Garlinghouse, the growing number of digital assets is caused by the hype around the crypto ecosystem. Noting that there are more than 3,000 digital assets that trade on a daily basis, Ripple CEO hinted that very few will actually be able to meet customer needs, arguing that the vast majority of them will probably go to zero. He stated, "Anytime there's a new market, there are a lot of people that run into that market and try to show that they can solve a problem, they can deliver a customer need." He pretty much got it on the nose here. Like he hit the problem exactly. Like, just think of these 3,000 different cryptocurrencies. Essentially, what they need to break through in this market to be long-term viable is they need to fulfill a function either that no other cryptocurrency fulfills, or they need to do it better than any other cryptocurrency. And you have to wonder, are there 3,000 unique use cases that all need a different project to solve them? And then further, cryptocurrencies need liquidity. They need a market. And the cryptocurrency market is big. But if that was split over 3,000 different assets, the actual liquidity in each and every single one of them would be tiny. Furthermore, these also need to be supported by exchanges, by companies. They need to be integrated into things to be able to succeed. And with that many assets on the market, there isn't a chance in hell that anywhere near 99% of them will actually find use. So why are we talking about this? Because this seems straightforward. But the thing is, a lot of people consciously recognize this, but might not fully be aware of this, or might be kind of skipping over this when they actually make investment choices. So I want to turn this into a little bit of a lesson. And I'm not trying to teach you anything new here. This is stuff you know deep down. This is stuff you know consciously. But when you decide to invest in anything, be it a cryptocurrency, be it a company, be it stock, be it property, that you think very long and hard about the realistic future potential of whatever you're investing in. Because 99% of any given market, especially a young market, is junk, will die down, or best case scenario, will still be around but will underperform the rest of a growing market. So be very careful. If you're investing in something, make sure that whatever it is, that they're providing something novel, that the people doing it are skilled, are trustworthy, have shown in the past that they can build projects like this, that the necessary support is there, and that no other project already does the same thing better. when we're looking at cryptocurrencies, I would say that many of the cryptocurrencies that hang around in the top 20 can be argued to do something unique, to do something in a unique way, or to have some reason or reasons why you should be supporting them, why they will likely have a good future. But there's also plenty projects, especially once you go lower in the top 100, that are carbon copies of each other, that saw what Bitcoin or what Ether or what XRP or what EOS did, and that are essentially copying that, but that don't offer anything new, that don't have any of the institutional support, that don't have any of the connections, that don't have a development team as good, that aren't supported on nearly as many exchanges, and it just makes you wonder, why would anyone want to invest in that? So sometimes you can see one of these lower market cap coins, and you might think, oh, there's so much more upward potential. Yes, theoretically, that is absolutely true, but be very, 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 very careful which specific low market cap coins you want to invest in. If you just want to speculate that market movements might result in you being able to make a quick profit there, then just about any cryptocurrency can give you that. Because market movements are not entirely rational, especially for a low market cap coin, they're also easily manipulated and you might be able to ride that wave. But if you're looking for long-term investments, if you're putting a lot of money in, be very careful, pay attention to how these projects are connected, who's behind them, which purpose they fulfill, and there's a handful of coins that you can be safe with, that you can be reasonably secure. They will be around in a couple of years. They do something that a lot of interest exists for. They do it well. They have the right connections. I would say that XRP is one of them. Another one of those, absolutely Bitcoin. Ethereum, almost certainly another one. Those are the big coins. They are the big coins for a reason. So just keep that in mind. What Garlinghouse said here is not at all controversial, but I don't think a lot of people want to hear it. And even if they hear it, even if they agree with the general sentiment, they might think that they're like number 87 coin on the top 100 by market cap is the exception. It is very likely not the exception. So just be careful there. Okay. Next up, I just wanted to briefly bring up two stories about cryptocurrencies' potential for use in crime, but more importantly, how law enforcement in two different countries wants to deal with it. And I don't think there's anything all that significant going on here, but I do think it's important to keep these things in mind, because the legal situation around all of this will change. A lot of new laws are necessary, so it's important to be aware what the legal situation in any given country, especially in your country, is, where it's likely to go in the future, and even if you're not in either of these two countries, a lot of other countries will take some cues from that. So first up, we have some statements by the FBI director on the application of cryptocurrency by criminals and which problems it raises for law enforcement. And this is just this is a good thing to keep in mind. So let's read this real quick. FBI Director Christopher Wray said cryptocurrency is a significant issue that is likely to become a bigger and bigger problem for the law enforcement agency. Speaking in front of the US Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee on Tuesday, he responded to questions from US Senator Mitt Romney about cryptocurrency, law enforcement, and terrorist deterrence, saying, "We are looking at it from an investigative perspective, including tools that we have to follow the money even in this new world that we're living in." He supported Romney's line of questioning concerning terrorist financing, saying that US adversaries are becoming more facile with technology, in particular various types of technology that anonymize their efforts. It's not just crypto, however. He noted encryption is touching every aspect of emerging tech, such as instant communications. Whether it's cryptocurrency, whether it's default encryption on devices and messaging platforms, we are moving as a country and world in a direction where if we don't get our act together, money, people, communication, evidence, facts, all the bread and butter for all of us to do our work will be essentially walled off from the men and women we represent. In 2018, the FBI said it had an estimated 130 cases involving crypto under investigation, from human trafficking to ransomware. And this May, the FBI shut down Deep.web, a dark web marketplace which solicited some services in cryptocurrency. This, of course, is not the first dark web marketplace dealing in crypto that was shut down. So none of this really comes as a surprise. Cryptocurrency was at least partially developed to be a democratizing, a freeing force for privacy. Now, not every cryptocurrency is obviously a privacy coin, but even the ones that are easily tracked are still harder to track than traditional bank movements. You still need more technical expertise. You need to very specifically track among the blockchain, and it's still possible to create anonymous wallets. And then, of course, they can be tracked in other ways. The wallet itself is anonymous, but you might be able to track how that wallet first received cryptocurrency from an exchange, and you might be able to tie that to a real person. But either way, even the most non-privacy coin cryptocurrencies do have an added layer of abstraction that makes tracking them a bit harder. Absolutely not impossible, but a bit harder. But this is gonna become a growing problem, and it is becoming a growing problem for law enforcement around the world, that cryptocurrency can be used to cover the tracks of criminals. Now, there's many different ways you can deal with that. And ultimately, this is the side effect of any privacy, of any encryption, that good people, you and me, who aren't doing anything wrong, who aren't doing anything illegal, can use it to reinforce their privacy and their human rights to privacy and to freedom by employing these encryption algorithms, whether it's on messages, whether by using cryptocurrencies, whether by specifically going for a privacy coin. At the same time, these of course enable criminals to do much the same things. Now, I'm personally very conflicted on this, because I recognize that we do need law enforcement to have the ability to, at some level, track monetary movements, to be able to just collect the necessary evidence to go after criminals, and not just people who are moving money in some illicit way. Like that's ultimately a pretty low tier crime. But I'm talking about international crime rings. We're talking about sex trafficking and stuff like that. Drug trafficking, actual serious crimes. That absolutely needs to be a way for law enforcement to track some aspects of that. At the same time, the entire world, many modern nations are turning into surveillance states. And I recognize the power of something like Bitcoin, like cryptocurrency. Not even Bitcoin in particular, because Bitcoin is not at all very private in the grand scheme of crypto. But I recognize the role of that to give citizens the privacy that they have a right to. We see more and more cameras coming up. We see everything we do on our mobile phones and our computers being tracked to one degree or another. And you cannot blame someone for wanting more privacy. So this will always be a situation where law enforcement and normal people and criminals have very different needs, have very different aims, and are all in constant conflict. And there is no correct way out of this. Everyone needs something else out of this. But I do think it's always important to keep in mind what these things that give us privacy, that give us something that we have a right to, how they can also be abused, and how that creates problems for law enforcement. Which does not mean that law enforcement necessarily needs to be given away to get around it. But this is how the FBI is dealing with it. They're recognizing it as a real problem, with the distinct possibility that in the near future it will simply be impossible to properly do their job. And that is an issue to consider. Now, Russia is having a bit of a similar issue, not so much with the tracking of cryptocurrency, but with the seizing of illegal goods, which this, I feel, I've seen this thrown around social media a lot. A lot of people seem outraged by this, but this just to me seems to be the same thing that every government around the world is doing with in a similar issue, just extended to cryptocurrency. But let's read this for a moment. Russian authorities are seeking legal means to confiscate virtual assets such as cryptocurrencies, as they can already do with more traditional forms of property. The first sentence essentially tells you everything here. This is not something new, this is just extending something that was previously possible to crypto. In an effort to fight cybercrime, the Ministry of Internal Affairs intends to develop legislation allowing law agencies to force criminals to hand over ill-gotten digital gains, and wants proposals on the books by December 2021. They're taking 2 full years for that, wow, even longer. The Ministry of Internal Affairs will be joined by the Finance Regulator, Rosfin Monitoring, the Prosecutor General's Office, the Investigative Committee, the Justice Ministry, the Federal Customs Service, the Federal Security Service, and the Supreme Court in developing the proposals. This might be why it's gonna take over 2 years. Long-awaited regulation addressing crypto assets more generally has been held up in the Russian parliament, further complicating the issue. A legal definition of cryptos, perhaps as commodities or cash equivalents, is required to allow forfeiture, according to the report. However, the definition being set out in the new rules may not be appropriate in this case. And we don't really need the rest of this. This is just, I feel like this is a non-issue being turned into one by the news media and by how people are reacting to this. Ultimately, when any kind of asset is involved in criminal actions or suspected of being involved in criminal assets, most governments have the ability to forfeit that, to take that away from suspected or proven criminals. And right now in some countries, depending on how that law is written, it does not apply to digital goods. That is because until very shortly ago, we simply did not have digital goods with a high exchange value. So there was never a need to have any such law on the books. It used to be that you couldn't really steal digital goods. Like, you could make copies of digital goods, but we never really had something like a cryptocurrency where it is digital, but it is owned by any given one person, and it has a value and it has an exchange value, and it can be taken from somebody, or it can be used to finance something illegal. That simply was never really the case. So this is very much just expanding previously existing laws to cover cryptocurrency as well, or at least the attempt to do that. I expect most every country will get laws like this on the book sooner or later. I think the ethical issue here is not so much whether you think this should be extended to crypto. I don't think this in particular should be any kind of scandal here. I think the issue is much rather whether you think forfeitures like this are acceptable by a government at all. And there we get back into the issue of security versus privacy, how much a government should be able to do. But keep in mind, depending on how these laws are written, that these often only apply to people who have been found by a court of law to have committed a crime with certain assets. There is some ability to abuse these in some countries, especially in America. I think it's called a civil forfeiture. Is often abused by police forces, by the government. But of course you have to wonder if that is an issue with the individual laws or with the very concept of a government seizing assets that have been used in a crime. Either way, I do not think this is really a big issue. I just wanted to bring it up because I see people going insane over this. And I'm just like, this is to be expected. This is normal. This is normal government behavior. If they want to be able to go after criminals who use cryptocurrency in crimes, they need to put cryptocurrency under the same legal umbrella that everything else, that any other exchange good, any other currency, any other asset has been under in the past. And this is really very much a non-issue. If anything, this is probably good. It gives us more, the more legislation there is in different countries, the more clarity you have as an owner of crypto, what your legal situation is. And of course, this is also further reason for people to maybe not commit the crime that they were planning to commit. And I think that's all I wanted to talk about today. Not so much any important stories, it's just things that I think are either not quite as understood as they should be, or taken out of context a bit. And I guess that's all I have to say here. As always, thanks very much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in another video soon, hopefully.